Have you ever wondered why we speak so many different languages around the world? The story of the Tower of Babel tries to explain this diversity. According to history, humanity, united by a single language, tried to build a tower that would reach the heavens, defying its own limits. However, this ambition had consequences. Divine intervention confused their languages, spreading people across the world and creating the cultural diversity we know today. In this video, we will learn about this fascinating story and reflect on the lessons it offers us. Let's understand together what the Tower of Babel teaches us. Men's ambition to build the Tower of Babel was born from a deep desire to achieve something that transcended human limits. At that time, humanity lived in a state of unity and spoke a single language, which facilitated communication and collaboration between people. This cohesion allowed men to dream of a great work that symbolized their collective power. The construction of the tower represented, for them, the possibility of rising to the heavens, the mastery of divine mysteries, and the search for immortality through its creation. The objective was not just architectural, but carried a deeper meaning. Men wanted to mark their presence on earth and in heaven, defying the natural limits that separated them from the gods. The tower would be an eternal monument, proving that humanity was capable of impossible feats and that it did not need divine intervention to prosper. This desire to achieve eternal glory also reflected the pride and arrogance of those who believed they could rival the divine. The construction of the tower became a symbol of rebellion against the limitations imposed by nature and the heavens. More than just a physical building, it represented the human dream of reaching the unknown and controlling one's own destiny. However, this ambition, marked by vanity and overconfidence, ended up awakening greater forces, which eventually intervened to put an end to humanity's bold project. At the time of the construction of the Tower of Babel, humanity lived in a unique phase of its history, marked by impressive unity. All people spoke the same language, which allowed perfect communication and collaboration never seen before. This ability to understand each other without language barriers facilitated the sharing of ideas, knowledge, and skills, creating an ideal environment for grand undertakings such as the construction of the tower. Without the cultural and linguistic divisions we know today, men were able to act as a true collective, driven by a single purpose: the search for immortality and glory. Linguistic unity not only facilitated progress, but also nurtured a sense of unshakable trust among the people. There were no misunderstandings or confusions. Everyone was aligned in their common desire to reach the heavens. This social cohesion also reinforced the belief that, together, men could overcome any obstacle, including the forces of nature and the limitations of their human condition. However, this unification also generated a dangerous collective arrogance. They began to believe that because they were united and spoke the same language, they were invincible and capable of achieving feats beyond imagination. The desire to build the tower was the culmination of this thought. If united, they could achieve the impossible. This belief, however, would be tested and destroyed with the confusion of languages, showing the fragility of human ambition when challenged by greater forces. The idea of building the Tower of Babel did not arise suddenly, but was carefully planned by men as a milestone of their grandeur and ambition. Motivated by their linguistic and social unity, they began to conceive a project that would make them immortal in history, a tower that would rise to the heavens. The construction of the tower symbolized the collective power of humanity, a challenge to its own physical and spiritual limits. The leaders of this endeavor believed that the tower would be a bridge between earth and heaven, an eternal monument that would show their strength, intelligence, and ability to overcome the barriers imposed by nature. The chosen location, on the vast plain of Shinar, was ideal for a construction of such magnitude, offering solid ground and resources necessary to carry out such an ambitious project. The construction techniques, although rudimentary compared to what we have today, were revolutionary for the time. Men molded clay bricks and baked them in the sun, creating sturdy blocks that would form the colossal structure. Tar was used as mortar to hold the bricks together, making the tower strong and durable. With each stage of construction, the tower grew, rising majestically against the horizon, inspiring those who saw it. The design of the tower was not only practical, but loaded with symbolism. She represented humanity's dream of rising beyond their mortal condition, of touching the sky and, perhaps, defying the gods themselves. With the plan for the Tower of Babel laid out and the ambition to reach the heavens defined, the collective work of men became a remarkable example of cooperation and organization. The construction of the tower involved an immense number of workers, from architects and engineers of the time to workers who molded bricks and transported heavy materials. The unity of language and purpose allowed everyone to collaborate efficiently and without communication obstacles, making the progress of the work quick and impressive. The construction was meticulously organized, with functions clearly distributed among the different groups. Some took care of the production of bricks, made with clay and dried in the sun, while others transported them to the top of the structure, which rose higher and higher every day. The use of tar as mortar united the blocks, guaranteeing the tower's strength. Even with the technological limitations of the time, humanity showed its ingenuity, creating tools and techniques to optimize work and deal with the immense scale of the work. Collective work was not restricted to just the physical part. Creative minds came together to solve the challenges that arose, finding innovative ways to continue construction as the tower grew. Cooperation was the key to the success of the endeavor, and each man involved in the work believed that he was contributing to something great, an achievement that would mark his presence in the world and in heaven. This joint effort generated a feeling of pride and confidence. The men saw the tower grow before their eyes and believed that nothing could stop them. As the Tower of Babel rose imposingly toward the firmament, the ambition of men transcended simple architectural achievement. The construction stopped being just a human project and became a symbol of defiance against the heavens themselves and the deities. The tower represented the attempt to break the barrier between the earthly and celestial worlds, and men believed that, when they reached the heavens, they would be on the same level as the gods, or even challenge them. This act of boldness was not just a desire to approach the divine, but an affirmation of human pride. The construction of the tower carried a sense of rivalry, as if the men wanted to prove that, united, they could achieve what was beyond their condition. They were no longer content with the limits imposed by nature or the divine. The tower became an instrument of power, of control over the heavens, and, who knows, of immortality. However, this challenge to the heavens was seen as an affront by greater forces. The gods, realizing the growing pride of men, feared what would happen if the tower was completed. The construction of a structure that reached the divine plane was a threat, not only to the natural order, but to the hierarchy itself between mortals and immortals. This act of defiance, driven by the desire for domination and glory, would create the conditions for divine intervention, which would change the course of human history. The growing pride and ambition of men in building the Tower of Babel did not go unnoticed by divine forces. The gods, observing the increasingly taller building and the implicit challenge it posed, decided to intervene. The boldness of humanity, which intended to reach the heavens and perhaps even rival the gods, was a threat to the established order. Not only was the physical tower a problem, but what it symbolized: the human desire to control that which was sacred and divine. The decision to interfere was not based solely on the men's hubris, but on what their unity could mean if they continued to act as a cohesive entity. With a single language and a common determination, humanity seemed capable of accomplishing anything, even violating the boundaries between the mortal world and the divine. The deities feared what men might do if the construction was completed, so quick and decisive action was necessary. To prevent the Tower of Babel from being completed, the gods chose an unexpected and effective method: the confusion of tongues. The confusion of tongues was the decisive turning point in the story of the Tower of Babel. At the height of its construction, when the tower rose majestically and men seemed close to achieving their goal, divine intervention unleashed chaos upon humanity. From one moment to the next, communication, which until then had been the key to unity and progress, was destroyed. Each person began to speak a different language, and what was once a cohesive and organized group became a mass of individuals unable to understand each other. The confusion not only paralyzed the work, but completely destabilized the harmony that had allowed progress up to that point. Workers and supervisors, once working in perfect harmony, now gestured desperately, trying to communicate without success. Orders were given, but no one understood them. Tools fell from workers' hands, and disputes began to arise. The construction of the tower, which had been the ultimate symbol of human cooperation and ambition, quickly disintegrated into confusion and chaos. The psychological impact was devastating. The inability to communicate not only halted the physical work, but also fragmented the social and cultural cohesion that had united the people. Without a common language to share ideas and instructions, frustration grew, leading to collective withdrawal. The tower, once destined to touch the heavens, was left unfinished, while humanity, now divided by languages, began to disperse across the earth, taking with them their newly acquired languages and fragmented cultures. With the confusion of tongues spreading chaos among the workers, the dream of completing the Tower of Babel was quickly dashed. What was once a grand and ambitious construction now became the scene of disorder and frustration. Unable to communicate and organize work, the builders were forced to abandon the project. The tower, which was supposed to be the eternal monument to humanity's glory, remained unfinished, a symbol of its collective failure. Without common language, efforts to continue the work became futile. The workers dispersed into small groups, each speaking their own language, without any ability to cooperate. Attempts to continue with the construction became impossible, and the pride that once motivated them now gave way to impotence and discouragement. The tower, even if partially erected, would never fulfill its promise of touching the heavens. The failure of the tower marked the end of a period of unification among men. The great project, which represented the unity and power of humanity, now became a reminder of its vulnerability before divine forces. The dream of reaching the heavens, of transcending human limits, was interrupted not by technical or physical limitations, but by his own pride. Thus, the Tower of Babel became not just an unfinished work, but an eternal symbol of the consequences of overconfidence and lack of humility in the face of superior forces. With the confusion of languages and the failure of the Tower of Babel, humanity, once united by a single language and purpose, began to fragment. Unable to understand and organize themselves, the people who once worked together to build the tower began to distance themselves from each other, driven by the inability to communicate and the need to survive within their own groups. This moment marked the beginning of the dispersion of humanity across the world. Each group, now speaking a different language, sought new lands where they could settle, away from the confusion that dominated the site of the unfinished tower. As they spread, People took with them their new languages and, consequently, their different ways of living, thinking, and organizing their societies. What was once a cohesive civilization began to divide into diverse cultures, each with its own identity, customs, and traditions. The dispersion of humanity had profound consequences. The world, which previously knew only one language and culture, now became a mosaic of different peoples, each with their own worldview. Linguistic and cultural diversity began to shape the future of civilizations, laying the foundation for the emergence of distinct nations, religions, and identities. This event also served as a lesson that pride and the desire to defy heaven-imposed limits could lead to ruin. The dispersion of humanity after the failure of the Tower of Babel left a lasting legacy, explaining the origins of the countless languages and cultures that inhabit the world to this day. The story of the Tower of Babel left a profound and symbolic legacy that echoes to this day. The failure of the tower and the subsequent dispersion of humanity became powerful metaphors for the dangers of arrogance, excessive ambition, and disunity. The tower, which was supposed to be a monument to human greatness, became a reminder of the consequences of trying to exceed the limits imposed by nature and the divine. The Babel event explains not only the diversity of languages around the world, but also the emergence of different cultures and societies. The confusion of languages, seen as a divine punishment for human pride, resulted in the creation of a fragmented world, where a plurality of voices and identities would shape the course of human history. Each nation came to develop its own worldview, beliefs, and social systems. And this diversity, although born from an event of disunity, enriched civilization as a whole. Furthermore, the Tower of Babel is often seen as a symbol of the fragility of human cooperation in the face of greater forces, whether destiny, nature, or the divine. The myth reminds us that unity and communication are fundamental to carrying out great endeavors, and that pride, when not controlled, can lead to downfall. The legacy of the Tower of Babel is a warning about the power of language and communication, while also highlighting the beauty and value of the cultural and linguistic diversity that makes up the mosaic of humanity.